Once upon a time in a prosperous village, there was a master who owned vast lands, homes, and a bustling household. He was a fair man, known for his wisdom and generosity. He was kind to his servants, treating them with respect and ensuring that they were well taken care of. Among his servants were two men of different character, Elias and Marcus. Elias was known for his diligent nature. He took great pride in his work and always completed his duties with care and precision. Marcus, on the other hand, was a man who did the bare minimum, always seeking shortcuts and thinking of ways to avoid his tasks. The master had noticed this difference between them, but chose to trust both with important responsibilities in his absence. One day, the master announced that he would be going on a long journey to a distant land. Before leaving, he called his two servants to him. "Elias, Marcus," the master said, "I am entrusting my household to you while I am away. Ensure that everything runs smoothly, that the servants are fed and cared for, and that the estate remains in good condition." Elias bowed deeply, taking the master's words to heart. Marcus nodded half-heartedly, his mind already drifting to thoughts of freedom and leisure. With a final glance at his estate, the master departed, leaving Elias and Marcus to carry out their duties. As the days turned into weeks, Elias remained steadfast in his duties. He awoke early each morning, ensuring that the other servants were fed and the estate was maintained. He took care to handle the master's affairs with the utmost attention, treating the household as though it were his own. Elias didn't consider the work a burden. In fact, he found great satisfaction in fulfilling his responsibilities. The estate flourished under his watchful eye, and the other servants respected him for his diligence. They knew that Elias was trustworthy and that the master's property was in good hands. In the evenings, Elias would take a moment to reflect on the day's work, always asking himself if there was something more he could do to improve the estate. He believed that his efforts would not go unnoticed and that the master would be pleased upon his return. One evening, after a long day of overseeing the estate, Elias sat beneath an ancient oak tree in the garden. The setting sun cast a warm glow over the land, and Elias felt a sense of peace. He knew that he had done all he could to ensure that the master's property was well cared for. In that quiet moment, Elias thought about the future. He imagined the master returning and seeing how well the estate had been maintained. He hoped that his hard work would be recognized and that perhaps the master would reward him with even greater responsibilities. Elias wasn't seeking material rewards. What he desired most was the master's trust and confidence. He believed that those who were faithful in small things would be trusted with larger ones. And so, Elias continued to work diligently, never wavering in his commitment to the master's household. While Elias was busy fulfilling his duties, Marcus took a different approach. Initially, he made an effort to follow the master's instructions, but his enthusiasm quickly waned. He began to slack off, spending more time lounging in the shade than attending to the estate. Marcus reasoned that the master would be gone for a long time, and there was no need to overexert himself. He began to treat the other servants poorly, barking orders at them and shirking his responsibilities. He became careless, neglecting the maintenance of the estate and allowing things to fall into disrepair. The other servants noticed Marcus's behavior and grew resentful. They knew that Marcus was not acting in the best interest of the household, but they were afraid to speak out against him. After all, Marcus had been given authority by the master, and they did not want to risk punishment. One day, after several months had passed, word came that the master would be returning soon. Panic set in for Marcus. He looked around the estate and realized just how much he had neglected. The gardens were overgrown, the buildings were in need of repair, and the other servants were disgruntled and weary from his poor treatment. Marcus tried to make up for lost time, rushing to clean up the mess he had made. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and there was no way to hide the evidence of his neglect. When the master returned, he surveyed his estate with a critical eye. He saw the overgrown gardens, the crumbling buildings, and the unhappy faces of the servants. His heart sank, for he had expected better. Elias stepped forward, explaining how he had done his best to care for the household. The master listened and saw that Elias had indeed been faithful. But when Marcus tried to make excuses for his negligence, the master's face hardened. "Marcus," the master said sternly, "I entrusted you with my household, and you have failed me. You have mistreated my servants and allowed my estate to fall into ruin. You will no longer be in my service." And with that, Marcus was dismissed from the master's household, left to wander in search of a new place to call home. The master's return had come at a time when neither Elias nor Marcus had expected it. Though Elias had remained prepared, Marcus had allowed himself to become complacent. The suddenness of the master's return was a stark reminder that one must always be ready for the unexpected. Elias, despite the challenges, had kept his focus on his responsibilities, knowing that the master could return at any moment. This preparedness had saved him from the fate that befell Marcus. The lesson was clear. Life is full of uncertainties, and one must always be vigilant and ready to act. Elias's readiness was not just about the physical upkeep of the estate. It was about a mindset of constant preparedness. He understood that his role was not just to react to problems as they arose, but to anticipate them and be proactive in preventing them. This readiness extended beyond his work. Elias also prepared himself emotionally and mentally, staying focused on what was important and not allowing himself to be distracted by trivial matters. This mindset of readiness had become a way of life for him, and it served him well when the master returned. The parable highlights the concept of stewardship, caring for something that has been entrusted to you. Elias viewed his responsibilities as more than just tasks to be completed. He saw himself as a steward of the master's household. He understood that the estate was not his, but he treated it with the same care and attention as if it were. This sense of stewardship guided his actions and ensured that he remained faithful to his duties. Elias knew that being a good steward meant taking care of what had been entrusted to him, not just for his own sake, but for the sake of the master and everyone in the household. Elias and Marcus were both accountable to the master for how they managed the household. Elias took this accountability seriously, knowing that he would have to answer for his actions when the master returned. Marcus, on the other hand, had failed to grasp the importance of accountability. He acted as though the master's absence meant he was free to do as he pleased, forgetting that he would eventually have to give an account of his behavior. When the master returned, the difference between the two became clear. Elias had nothing to fear because he had remained faithful. Marcus, however, faced the consequences of his actions. The consequences of faithfulness and unfaithfulness were starkly different. Elias was rewarded for his diligence, while Marcus was punished for his negligence. The master's judgment was not arbitrary. It was based on the actions of the servants and the choices they had made. This highlighted the idea that our actions have consequences, and those consequences are directly related to how we fulfill our responsibilities. Elias's faithfulness brought him greater trust and responsibility, while Marcus's unfaithfulness led to his dismissal. In many interpretations of the parable, the master's return is seen as a symbol of divine judgment. Just as the master returned unexpectedly to judge his servants, so too will there come a time when we will all be judged for our actions. Elias understood this and lived his life with the awareness that he would one day be held accountable. Marcus, however, ignored this reality and lived only for the moment, not considering the long-term consequences of his actions. The master's return was a reminder that judgment would come, and it would be based on how we have lived our lives. The parable also touches on the relationship between responsibility and authority. Elias had been given authority over the household, but with that authority came great responsibility. He understood that his position was not just a privilege but a duty. Marcus, however, saw his authority as an opportunity to exert power over others without considering the responsibility that came with it. This misuse of authority ultimately led to his downfall. Elias's understanding of the balance between responsibility and authority allowed him to manage the household effectively and earn the master's trust. The story of Marcus serves as a warning against complacency. He assumed that the master's absence meant he had plenty of time to relax and enjoy himself. This complacency led to his downfall, as he was unprepared when the master returned. Elias, on the other hand, never allowed himself to become complacent. He remained focused on his duties, knowing that the master could return at any moment. This vigilance protected him from the fate that befell Marcus. The parable teaches that complacency is dangerous, and one must always remain alert and diligent. Throughout his time in the master's household, Elias lived with integrity. He did his work not because he was being watched, but because it was the right thing to do. He understood that true integrity is about doing what is right, even when no one is watching. Marcus, on the other hand, only acted responsibly when he thought he could be caught. His lack of integrity ultimately led to his downfall, as his true character was revealed when the master returned. Elias's integrity earned him the respect of the other servants and the trust of the master, showing that living with integrity is its own reward.